Aloha mai kako, and welcome to Inspired by Aloha, a podcast dedicated to making your day a little brighter by showcasing that inspirational people and acts of aloha surround us every day. My name is Amy.
And I'm Shareen.
And I'm Erin.
And we are so grateful that you've chosen to spend a few minutes with us as we get ready to be
Inspired by Aloha. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We are so excited to have with us as our guest, Jamel Soltau.
That's our studio audience.
Of two people.
Well, Jamel is an amazing yoga instructor. She is a certified yoga therapist, and she's also a Reiki practitioner. And I had an opportunity to meet Jamel through yoga, and I just find her to be very intuitive to her students, to her clients, to everyone actually that she comes into contact with. So I want to welcome you, Jamel, and invite you to tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Shareen, for inviting me to Inspired by Aloha. It is a privilege to be here. I am a certified yoga therapist, a yoga instructor, a Reiki 2 practitioner, and a member of the International Association of Yoga Therapists and Yoga Alliance. I am also the owner and founder of I Am Yoga 808, where we provide holistic therapies such as yoga therapy, Reiki, meditation, and other holistic modalities to help individuals obtain full body wellness. As a yoga therapist, I offer complementary care focused on the whole person. So I support people, listen to them, and give them room to process their experiences from a mind and body spirit perspective. I also use scientific evidence based on yogic teachings more than poses, but a mindset and an energy balancing and breath work is being used. My offerings are customized to each individual's needs and interests. Each person walks away with resources and recommendations for their practice so that they can practice on their own. And I'm just basically here to empower them to be supported while working towards autonomy and self-resiliency of their own body.
Wow. That sounds really great. I'm like, ooh, sign me up. Get an appointment. Yeah, very cool. We were intrigued by your name, Jamel Soltau. And really, it's still related to your little introduction, Jamel. Like, tell us about who you are and how you came to Hawaii.
Okay, well, I'll start with my last name. My last name is by marriage. The story that I was told is that my husband's great-great-grandfather, his name was Natsu Soltau, and he was a Japanese lieutenant. And he escaped Japanese persecution when there was a Japanese war that was going on, and he fled to Soltau, Germany. And there he took the name Soltau so that he wouldn't be caught and taken back to Japan. And then from there, he fled to Jamaica, and he had over 20 kids. And that's how we ended up with the name Soltau.
Wow.
That's a beautiful story. And that's just an amazing story of resilience too back then.
Yeah.
Yes.
And energy.
Yes.
20 kids, man.
Yeah, 20. That's great grandfather had 20 kids. So one of those 20 children is your husband's grandfather. Am I getting that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, you are.
Wow. And then there's more kids. Wow, there's a lot of cousins. All over, right? Wow.
Yes,
So if we met a Soltau, it is highly likely that that would be some relative of your family.
Yes. Or they're just indigenous to Soltau, Germany.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, well, there's 20 kids. So that's
a lot.
Yeah, wow. Very cool. Neat. And then how did you come to Hawaii?
I came to Hawaii in 2016. My husband and I were currently living in Phoenix, Arizona. And at that time, my son was dealing with a lot of racial issues in high school, and it was causing some issues academically with him. And my husband was stationed here in 2009. And we had done a lot of family vacations. And then I just said, well, why don't we move to Hawaii? Because Hawaii has this wonderful thing called Aloha. And I think my son would benefit from a little bit of Aloha. And so we moved here, and my son graduated from James Campbell High School, and
Yay, go Sabres.
Go Sabres.
yeah, he was surrounded by abundance of Aloha, an abundance of love, and family from all over, every nationality, every origin, and it was just a beautiful experience.
Nice.
I am so grateful that my first experience was on the west side of Oahu, because I was just surrounded by love, support, and I got to understand the true meaning of Aloha.
Wow.
Wow, thank you so much, Jamel. You know, we just recently met you, and Shareen has known you for a while, but Amy and I have just met you, and we could just tell you just exude aloha. So you have just perpetuated that in your work. And we're just interested, you know, what is your philosophy behind wellness and healing? Because you've chosen that as your career, as your way to give back to the community. Can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy?
Yes. Well, I believe that all can benefit from mind-body connection therapy. While traveling through this experience that we call life, we're also experiencing challenges along the way. And these challenges can cause suffering in our physical, mental, emotional, and social bodies. But when we begin to self-study to build awareness of ourselves and allow ourselves room for discovery and change of behavior and goal setting for wellness and health, that's aloha to ourselves. And then through that mind-body connection therapy, we can start to empower individuals to become more present and lead a more meaningful existence. And then we begin to share aloha with everyone else. And then we all become aloha. It's a beautiful thing to watch if you ever get the opportunity to see it.
I love that idea of aloha to self, because a lot of times we do, especially as mothers or caregivers or parents, community members even, we do think about aloha and sharing it, which is super important. That's really what it's meant to do. But we need to also remember to give aloha back to ourselves. So I love that message that you give as well, Jamel.
Thank you.
So how did you begin your journey in wellness and as an advocate for wellness?
My journey. My journey began about 2012. My husband was diagnosed with stage 4 spinal cord cancer. And it left him after the surgery with the inability to walk, talk, have balance. He was using wheelchairs and walkers. So we began to practice yoga using P90X yoga by Tony Horton.
I remember that. I did it for like 2
yoga?
days.
Oh, I didn't know that. I tried that other one. And
Yeah, I did. I tried the harder
I
one.
was like, watched it lying on my sofa. But,
I thought it was super intense.
oh, yeah.
Wow.
Well, he had a best friend there, and he watched from his sofa. So yes,
That's great.
but me and our son, we encouraged him on, and through that, I watched him regain his balance and the skills to walk, and then the ability to build stamina and stability. And then we started to do meditation together. And through meditation, I watched him regain joy, especially after being diagnosed with PTSD. And he began to have self-regulation with dealing with the imbalances of his body and the residuals of cancer. And then it just started to become this, I have a reason to live again. And I thought that was like so amazing. So I started to do yoga. And I've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. So I started to use yoga to help with my quality of life. You know, my physical abilities, they started to improve. My concentration improved. My stress levels decreased. And I no longer suffered from insomnia, which was like a big deal because, you know, dealing with hypothyroidism, I was tired all the time. Like really was like a struggle to get out of bed. And all of a sudden I just had all of this energy. So I was like, wow. So when we moved to Hawaii in 2016, I said, I'm going to sign up for a yoga class. I'm going to start doing yoga every day.
That's great.
So I joined Yoga Loft Studios in Mililani. It's no longer open. It's closed after the pandemic, but that was like my yoga family. And I went there like at least 4 times a week starting off. Like I just dove totally into this pool of yoga. But still, it was only asanas. It was just movement for me. It was just, you know, I was still kind of equating it to a workout, but something that made me feel good at the end. And I was invited to do a yoga teacher training. And at first I was like, I'm not cut out to be a yoga teacher. I don't want to do a yoga teacher training. But the lady gave me a book, and it's called Anatomy by Spirit. And this book unfolded me. It made me forgive my parents. It made me forgive myself. It made me forgive all the harm that I had caused to other people. It just really struck a chord. And I found that, excuse me, my yoga practice was in line with that. And so I went ahead and I started to do the studying, and there were times where I just wanted to give up because I just didn't think it was for me. But, you know, I kept going and I kept learning more and more about myself. And it was like self-discovery, self-study. And I just started to transform to the point where my husband was like, who are you?
That's so good.
And so what happened is at the last 3 months of my yoga teacher training, I was diagnosed with a nervous condition called Guillain-Barré syndrome. And it's an autoimmune disorder that left severe nerve pain. And I lost my balance. I couldn't do headstands anymore. I couldn't do tree pose, like things that, you know, if I'm studying to be a yoga teacher, I think I should be able to. But I was losing the ability to do these things. And at the time, there was a lady in the class, and I watched her practice. And she moved slower than everybody else. It was like everything was so intentional. And I was moving because I was like, I need to get rid of this pain. I want to ignore this pain. And I just want to feel good afterwards. And let's just rush through it. But she showed me, why are you rushing through it? What happens if you just take the time to listen to yourself and understand why you're feeling this way? And then use your practice to self-regulate yourself. And then I got this huge realization. So I graduated and I was like, holy crap. This is amazing. I got to do more than just teach yoga. And so I got certified in chair yoga because I also had my mother-in-law living with me. And she said, oh, baby, you know, I can't get off the mat. You know, I can't do any practices with you on the mat. I said, no problem, Mom. I gotcha. Got certified in chair yoga. And then I got certified in aqua yoga because I met another lady who said, well, I can't get in the chair and I can't get up and down off the mat. So what do I do? So I was like, aqua yoga. So I'm like, yoga certification. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can and just share everything with everyone. And then the pandemic happened. And it shut down everything like literally 3 months after I got my certifications.
Wow.
And I found myself at the beach teaching yoga for free.
Wow.
Anyone who wanted to move during the pandemic. And from there, I just continued to flourish. And as of last year, I graduated from Maryland University Integrative Health and received my Master's of Science degree in yoga therapy.
Wow.
And I also became certified with the International Association of Yoga Therapists.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
That's
a journey.
So I continue, even with being attuned in Reiki 2, I continue to want to show our community that there are other means of therapy. There are other means of wellness and ways to obtain that. And there's ways that you can get it without going through your insurance company. And that is affordable. And that it is accessible to everyone. And that yoga is not just about movements. It can also just be what we're doing right here, talking stories and sharing it with the community and passing on that aloha. And that's yoga.
Wow. So your immune system is balanced now?
It's balanced with a lot of medication and a lot of meditation, yoga. But I keep my sadhana, my daily practice, to keep me balanced and to help me through those rough days. And I know that there is always that I can rely on that'll get me through to the next day if ever I'm having rough days. But pretty much I'm balanced. I stay happy. I eat well. I do a lot of things to keep my immune system as balanced as possible.
Well, you know, autoimmune illnesses run in my family, and I deal with flare-ups too, and so I'm a big believer of that whole holistic wellness, and I'm so sad when I see people just do medication. It helps with symptoms, but they don't really feel fully well, and so that the holistic concept of wellness is really really important. So, well, thank you for sharing that story. That's very inspiring.
So,
Thank you.
and on that note, we think about yoga, and yoga is poses. So, and you speak about yoga therapy. So, if you can share a little bit about the differences, I guess, between yoga and yoga therapy, and how they all can work to create overall wellness for a person.
Yes, they are both very great modalities to choose from when dealing with holistic wellness. The difference between a yoga instructor and a yoga therapist, that the yoga instructor normally focuses on yoga poses, yoga movements, alignment, breath work, meditation. They can do relaxation, and they may even do like some hands-on adjustments. But with yoga therapy, we focus on an individual's needs. So it's all based on the client's symptoms and reducing those symptoms, functionality and improving those functions and emotional relationships with their health condition. We also use scientific evidence-based information in order to support our clients in the issues that they are requesting a little bit of support with. We also only do hands-on adjustments. That is, you have to have the client's permission in order to do that. We are also very HIPAA compliant because we are educated in a lot of medical condition symptom modalities. We are also trained in psychology. We are trained in anatomy. We are trained in physiology, mental wellness, mental health. We also do assessments. We do client follow-ups. We do goal settings. We go a little bit more into depth. Also, in order to be a yoga therapist, you must already have your 200-hour yoga teacher training. And then from there, you can move on. And it takes about 1,000 hours of trained hours in client contact also to become a certified yoga therapist as well. So it's just a little bit more one-on-one in depth. We also do groups. So even in that group, we would do an assessment on each individual to make sure that they should be in the group that they're assigned to. And then with that group, they can get the support that they need as well.
I think everything that you do, yoga, brings you joy. But do you have a preference on the instruction side or the therapy side?
Oh, everyone loves a good yoga class because, with yoga class, you have that community, and then there's that, camaraderie that comes along with the yoga class. But I also feel like sometimes in yoga classes, it can be very competitive. We start, yoga is a path in the self, through the self, and out the self. And we forget that because sometimes we tend to look at our neighbors to see if we're doing it right.
Yes.
And then we take the whole focus off of working on ourselves off because now we start to do this comparison thing. So I feel like sometimes that's a downfall when we're going into yoga classes. But with yoga therapy, it's a one-on-one thing. So it's not a yoga class that you're provided. It could be simply you're given one pose and you're chanting or you're meditating, or it's a walking meditation, or you're learning how to eat in a more well way, and you're doing an eating meditation. There are also mudras, hand positions that we teach that could be part of your practice. There's also yoga nidra, which is a meditation to help with insomnia and lowering blood pressure. So there's a lot of yogic techniques that are not always applied in a normal yoga class that can be applied in a yoga therapy session that you would probably not get in a yoga class. If you're a person who says, hey, I want to deal with menopause, which is a big topic that you're hearing about. You're not necessarily going to get full help in menopause at a yoga class, but yet you can go to your yoga therapist and say, hey, these are the issues that I'm dealing with going through menopause. It's life changing. There's a lot of changing in behaviors that you have to go through, and that takes steps to do that. And also, I can work with your doctors. I can work with your PCM. I can work with a lot of other doctors to help with referrals, acupuncture. I can do all of these things that I wouldn't be able to do just being a yoga teacher.
I find yoga classes intimidating. And then my stomach gets in the way. I'm like, how do I do that? Like, my stomach's in the way, Yeah, I've only been to a couple of yoga classes, but, I've been to the big ones, right? My friends invite me, and I'm like, that man is made out of rubber. Like, how does he do that?
Like, so flexible.
Right? Or sometimes the instructor is just very intensive, right? So they're glancing at a whole class of like 30 people, right? And maybe they're like, hey, you in the blue. pull that leg out. I'm like, I can't pull my leg out anymore.
It is out.
Like, it's just what I am, So, yeah, the therapy of focused intention on a client is wonderful, right?
Yeah, and that's a very good point that you mentioned. I recently just took an accessibility to restorative yoga class, and it's very trauma informed, and these are topics that clients and students are having. What do I do with my stomach if I'm a body that has a little bit more tummy than other people? What do I do with it when I go into a fold? And it takes a certain teacher to be trained in that, to say, hey, for those individual bodies who have a little bit more space and a little bit more room in their belly, maybe it'll be beneficial to move it this way, or to have a bolster to create more space. And it takes a certain type of yoga instructor in order to be able to guide you in those things. But those are the type of things that you would get in a yoga therapy session, where we would accommodate those things for you, so that you can come into those poses more gently, and that you listen to your body rather than listening to the things that you may feel are in the way of your practice.
Yeah. So where does your source of energy and gifting for healing come from for you?
Call on my grandmother, Lydia. She's passed away. She's been gone since I was 5, but I always remember her having these healing hands. And when she did my hair, or when she made our food, it was always just present and healing. And so I always said that when I walk into a space, I want to carry that essence. When I touch an individual, I want that feeling. I don't want it just to feel like, oh, why is this person touching me? I just want it to have that home feeling. And from what I've been hearing, a lot of my family members have energetic gifts. And a few of them have shunned away from it. They're really afraid of it, and they're afraid to embrace it. But I have actually taken a lot of training to learn how to embrace my energies, how to share my energies in a way that is not only healing for you, but also healing for me. And that I keep myself safe, and that you keep yourself safe, and that our energies aren't entangled. So I really make sure that I am very careful that I do not cause harm when I am approaching people with my energy.
Well, and for you, right? I've had some experience with spiritual healing, and you have to take care of yourself when you're helping others, because some people, and I'm sure in yoga therapy, right, some people come with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Right. And
so it's very important that you keep a daily practice. Got to keep that daily practice.
Earlier you were talking about Aloha and relating it. Can you tell us a little bit more in terms of how do you feel the connection exists between Aloha and the practice of yoga?
The connection between Aloha and yoga is that they are both paths to life, I think. Aloha, as we know, it means living in harmony with people in the land around you, with sympathy, grace, and kindness. And also, alo is presence. It's being present, front and face. Ha is the breath. And in yoga, we remember that our breath is the way to bring us back to that present moment. It's the link between the body, the mind, and the heart. And I feel like Aloha inspires our yoga lifestyle. It is wonderful to live a life that brings light to ourselves and to the world. And what better way to do that is through having a yoga practice and living Aloha. So it's one and the same.
Beautiful.
Wow.
I love that connection. And really to the breath and life. Because yes, breathing is life. But connecting yoga with Aloha, so good. All so good. Would you share a story with us of inspired Aloha? What has inspired you, and where you've seen Aloha in your practice, or when you've helped others, maybe that you could share something that looked like inspired Aloha to you?
Inspired Aloha. A good story is during the pandemic, I had a group of women reach out to me wanting to do Kundalini yoga in the park. And one of the ladies happened to be a doctor. I'm not going to share her name or the hospital that she works in, just to kind of keep her privacy. Me and her became really good friends, and she asked me for a Reiki session. Well, because I'm trying to introduce this whole yoga therapy thing to everyone. When I have a Reiki person, I also add a little bit of yoga therapy into it, minus the assessments, but just also giving them a plan of care when they leave. And she loved it so much, she shared it with another doctor. And then that doctor asked me to do her husband, who is a pediatric doctor. And then she asked me to do her family who came to visit, who are doctors in California. And I was like, oh my gosh, they loved it so much that with me giving them aloha and me giving this touch of being present and having them be able to work through their links of mind, body, and heart, they're making themselves whole so that they can continue to show aloha and be present for our community, because we need our doctors.
Yes.
And then that way, the aloha just keeps flowing from me to the doctors, to the patients, to their family. And it's just an overwhelming amount of aloha that just continues to flow in and out of our island. It made it all the way to California. So
That's awesome.
it's amazing. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to witness.
How did the doctor clients, I mean, how did they respond? Like, what was their takeaway? Like, was it just like, wow, you know, because doctors, they can be very analytical and scientific. And so I'm like intrigued because, you know, those are medical practitioners and sometimes they're the most resistant to holistic approach, you know?
I totally agree with you. And what I found was truly amazing about these two doctors is that they were open to receive it for themselves. So they knew that there was something that was off and that they had an awareness and they wanted to fix it because they knew that if they weren't whole, they couldn't show up for their patients. They can't show up for their community. That was number one for me. Like, wow, you took this step to contact me. So if you took that step, I am meant to be in your life. That's just the first thing that I saw. The second thing, one immediately took onto it. You know, she was the one who was already doing yoga. She already took to it. She loved it. And she bragged about it to everyone in her office. The other person, the first meeting, she was still kind of hesitant. She was grateful. She could feel a little something. But it was her husband who was anti Reiki. I don't want the Reiki, but because my wife said I need to do it, I'll do it. The first time, soon as I was done, he shot up off the table and he was gone.
Wow.
By the second time they called me, he was such a believer and he could feel the difference.
Wow.
He saw the difference happening in his own household. He saw the difference in his relationships with his friends, with his colleagues, and with his patients.
Wow.
And then that's when he said his sister-in-law came and he said, oh, you have to do this. Prior, you have to check it out. And then he also had me do his daughter. And his daughter is very ill. I was able to connect her with her on just different stories, just talking and doing Reiki using the stories, just talking about different stories that she's heard in school that she could relate to. And they loved the way that she was able to receive the gifts. And then it just kept manifesting. To even the family from California asked for me to work with their son. And it just kept folding. So if they can see it and they know the benefits of what it can do, and like I said, they weren't believers the first time around. It was the second time when they just started to see in themselves, wow, I'm more here. Wow, my relationship with my wife is improving. My daughter, her symptoms are decreasing. If they have to see it for themselves. And once they see it, you can't help. You know, you ever seen a YouTube video and you go, wow, I didn't even almost, it's almost that. And once that happens, that's the light. And once that light is there and it's sparked, you can't take it out. It has to be shared. And we all just need to remember that we're here because we have a story. It has to be shared.
I love that you have very intentional efforts towards learning different skills to adapt to different people's needs, like chair yoga, aqua yoga, Reiki. I'm curious, I've heard of yoga, of course, I've heard of Reiki, but how would you describe the differences between yoga and Reiki? And how do you know when to use which with your clients?
Well, first, I allow the client to have autonomy over their body, number one. You have to decide what you feel is best for you. I don't want to interject unless you ask me. And most people already know, hey, I either want yoga or I want Reiki. They automatically know which one they want to go with. And that's where I meet them. I always meet them exactly where they are. Also, when I start to decide how I want to work with the client, I make everyone do an intake form. That way I am familiar with what you have going on with your life. I don't make assumptions and I don't put any negativity or my assumptions on you. And I come in with a clear slate of who you are and what you need. Now, if I see that there are certain things that you're suffering from, I may add another modality at the end. So we're going to do some breath work while we're doing in Reiki because I want you to relax. The big difference between yoga, like I said, yoga is, it could be movement, it could be breath work, it could be meditation, it could also be chanting, it could be singing, it could just be us talking stories. With Reiki, it's more of you totally relaxing and me using the Reiki energy to help release blocks that are in your chakra. But I cannot do it without you being open and you being receptive and your permission in order to move those energies.
Yeah.
That's great.
And that's the biggest difference. But number one, meeting the client where they are and what they want. And number two, listening to their story. It's so important to listen to their story.
Yes.
3, asking for that permission. And once I start to do that, I can introduce other things. So if a person is coming to me saying, hey, I have anxiety, I can offer them a mudra that would help with anxiety, or a chant or a song that would help them along the way. And maybe after the Reiki session, we'll do it together. We may do a meditation, a brief meditation afterwards, just to really help them. And then I'll even send them that recording of that meditation so that they can always use it. You know, the whole purpose is to empower people. They want to be able to have these things on their own so that they can start to, oh, this is flaring up. Let me grab this. Let me grab that meditation. Let me go back to that breath work. And that's the biggest thing, because guess what they're going to do? They're going to share with their friends. And the more sharing we do, the more aloha we spread.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
We can heal the world. I love that.
Well, I like that, holistic, and one of the constants in your sharing is the listening. And I think that's what, sometimes Western medicine and the physicians or the whoever you're going to, they're not really listening so much as they are just giving advice or talking. So, trying to really hone in on how to make you well versus let's just address your symptoms. So, I like that.
What's powerful about yoga therapy, because I can work with your primary care. So the things that maybe your primary care didn't hear you say, I would hear you say. And then I can send a report over to your doctor to say, hey, maybe we need to check in on this. Maybe we need to refer this person over here because they could benefit for a little bit more care over here. And that is like the amazing thing that yoga therapy can do that a yoga teacher can't do.
Jamel, what motivates you to keep doing this work?
My family. My family, because I see the support that they need. And although it is out of my scope of practice and my bounds to take on my family as patients, I see what they suffer from. And if one person suffers from it, we all suffer from it. It's almost like that Ubuntu, I am, we are. So if I'm suffering, we're all suffering. And if I can learn from my family and I watch the way that they suffer and I watch the way that their mind goes when they're suffering, then I can help someone else out who's going through the same thing. And maybe if my family is open to it, I can slide a little bit of information over to them.
That's awesome.
Broken, some of them not so much, but it's my family that supports me and says, wow, the world really needs this. You got to keep going. You got to keep going.
That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
I mean, like, a lot of good
Wow.
stuff.
I'm like,
It's
ooh,
like what keeps going through my brain is like aloha in, aloha out. It's like what you can create in here, then you share out with the world.
Yeah.
That just
What
is
is that? Olalo no eo, aloha aku, aloha mai. Right? You cannot give aloha unless you've received aloha yourself. So it's back to that, the intentional spirit, right? That the alo
Reciprocity.
and the ha that's shared. That's awesome.
What wisdom then can you share with us for perpetuating aloha?
The wisdom that I would give would be to give everyone space and a listening ear, because I feel like that's what our world really needs right now. space, a judgmental free space, a listening ear so that an individual can explore what's really going on with them. And a lot of times we're too busy to give that listening ear. And that's not aloha. Or we're, we don't get that space because, I got to go do this and I got to go and do that. We're not even giving ourselves space. So I feel like it's just that space, that listening ear that we need to just give one another. And it only takes a few moments.
We live in a very noisy, busy world. That's so valuable.
I love how you said creating that space even for ourselves, to listen to ourselves, because you're right. We just go, go, go. And not only to create that space so that we can listen to our friends and our family or to strangers even, just to be kind to each other and create a place where I'm going to shut my mouth for a little bit and I'm going to hear your story and I'm going to see you, I'm going to acknowledge you and witness you, and to then also do that for yourself. I think that's very powerful what you said, Jamel.
That is,
I love that.
That is beautiful. That's that's very aligned to the foundation of this podcast, is to have a platform where we can share, hear stories and share really positive things with people that need to hear that there is good out there. You shared a lot of things with us today, Jamel. And are there some final thoughts that you'd like to share with our Inspired by Aloha listeners?
I would say share aloha by living it.
Deep.
Good.
That's good. Boom, drop the mic.
I know. And we're done.
She said it. I'm just kidding. Yeah, share aloha by living it.
Because we are. And if I am aloha and I'm living it, it will be shared and everyone else will be the same. You can't help but to spread.
That's
just
awesome.
Can't help.
Yeah.
What is that other saying? Be the aloha you wish to see in the world. We are aloha.
Yeah. So, how can others learn about you, about your organization, and how can they get in touch with you?
I am located at iamyoga808.com. On Instagram, I am under iamyoga_808. And on Facebook, I have a page, I am yoga 808. And I am also under Jamel Soltau, SOLTAU. And you can find me there.
Wonderful.
All right, everyone, remember, I am Yoga 808 with Jamel Soltau, and we're so, again, honored. We're so happy to have had you on this podcast, Jamel. You are a healer, and you are a perpetuator of aloha, and it's been wonderful speaking with you today. Thank you so much for being a part of it today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story.
Of course. Aloha. Take care. Ahui ho.
Aloha. Aloha.